April 28, 1973 will long be remembered in Northern California, particularly for residents from the city of Roseville, the town of Antelope, and the community of Citrus Heights. In a Southern Pacific switching yard sat 21 cars loaded with 7,250-pound bombs. What followed can best be told in this special report. The bomb blasts came sporadically at first. Explosions spaced a few seconds apart at one moment, then a series of booms like a giant string of firecrackers. The first ammo car detonated bombs aboard the second, which triggered the third. Smoke and flames towered into the sky. The switching yard was somewhat remote from densely populated areas. Yet the detonations were so severe that shrapnel rained on people and houses and streets. Law enforcement was moved in to keep the curious away. A disaster center was set up in a little park 3 miles from the blast area. Every available agency was called in to aid victims and to seal off danger areas. Communications were set up, air and ground support marshaled, food and medical supplies made ready. What had happened? Not many people really knew, even those who had seen the tragedy unfold.
All I know is when I turned around after the first explosion, the fire was in the boxcar. One boxcar was on fire. Then the next one, it just went up in a big mushroom smoke, and then the implosion, which knocked my son down and staggered my wife, who were standing at the fence post of the fence. The Bobbitts were out there. The one son, Chucky, supposedly got hit in the side of the face with something. Mr. Bobbitt picked up his son, evacuated him out of there.
By nightfall, 30,000 persons living within a radius of 3 miles from the center of the explosions had been evacuated from their homes. They went to churches and schools. People had donated food and clothing. Many stayed for a meal. Most awaited further word on when they would be allowed back in their houses. They would be disappointed. The danger was too great, and so were the memories.
And like I said, with the holiday coming up, I don't care to ever see another firecracker. I really don't, because after seeing all this fire and all this powder and everything going up in the air, I've seen all I want the rest of my life. I don't want to see any more.
Only a few hundred persons actually slept at the evacuation centers that first night, although there were plenty of beds and blankets. By Sunday, the community at large began to get its first look at the damage. It wasn't pretty. The town of Antelope, just west of the switching yard, was virtually destroyed. Entire homes reduced to rubble. The post office, its back wall blown off, was gutted. A fire station nearby leveled. A recycling factory down the road burned out. Debris littered the streets and yards and pastures. The danger had eased, but unexploded bombs were everywhere, and the twisted skeletons of freight cars were strewn about in the switchyard. Ground Zero resembled the aftermath of an air raid. Outlying neighborhoods up to a mile away were heavily damaged. Windows blown out, ceilings caved in, doors shattered, walls buckled. In all, about a dozen homes were totally destroyed. Up to 700 residences damaged in varying degrees within a 10-square-mile area. Sheriff's deputies, highway patrolmen, and National Guardsmen, operating from more than 24 checkpoints, kept all but authorized travelers from the abandoned neighborhoods and areas still considered dangerous. Looting of empty homes would be kept to a minimum throughout the week. By Monday and Tuesday, most evacuees had been allowed to return to their homes, but not in this neighborhood, closest to the blast area. Grand Oaks West consists of about 25 homes. All were heavily damaged. Some, in the eyes of their owners, damaged beyond repair.
First thing, we're going to clean out the house and then go look for another house.
You mean you don't have any place to stay, really?
No, not now. Well, we could stay with relatives, but that's not a good deal with 6 people moving in on a grandma, you know.
How about the house itself? Is there anything to come back to? Can you live in this house again?
Not like it is now, no. It's completely shot, as far as we're concerned. I wouldn't feel safe to move back into it right now.
The day after the disaster, Southern Pacific established an emergency claims office in nearby Roseville. By week's end, as many as 400 claims a day were being filed, and nearly $300,000 in advances and cash payments had been paid out to citizens whose property was damaged and for temporary shelter, food, and clothing. At its rail yard, Southern Pacific moved quickly. Hundreds of workers and a mountain of machinery tackled the job of cleaning up the mess. Company President B.K. Biagini flew in for an assessment of the damage. 200 freight cars destroyed or damaged beyond repair. Miles of track blasted away, useless. Damage total, an estimated $6 million. Investigators and bomb experts, military and civilian, probed the wreckage all week. Nearly 1,300 unexploded bombs were recovered. There was little evidence to sift through. 3 areas of blame were possible: sabotage, the Navy loading team, and Southern Pacific.
I wouldn't rule out any, but if I were to rank them, the only one that I would rank last at this point in time is that the railroad aspects of it contributed significantly to the incident.
In other words, you would absolve them at this point.
I wouldn't absolve them, but they seem, at this point, from what we've learned, they seem least likely to have been involved.
By Friday, Southern Pacific's yard had been largely rebuilt. Most of the roadblocks were down, except in critically damaged areas. Neighborhood schools were reopened, most homes reoccupied. And of the 50 persons injured, only a few remained under treatment. Someone added up all of the damage and estimated it would top $10 million. The Roseville switchyard 6 days later. This is all that's left of the carnage. So much twisted steel, the remains of freight cars that had been shoved to the side, eventually to be picked up and deposited on some scrap heap. Thousands of man-hours have been devoted to men laying miles of track and getting things back to normal. The bomb experts have been here and gone. So have the investigators looking for a cause, and they may never find it because everything was destroyed. But out of all of this, the millions of dollars in damage, the homes destroyed, no one was killed, and that is miraculous. Mike Boyd, KCRA News, Roseville.